Let's keep the learning going and return to the Tactical Marketing webinar on joint ventures. In this clip, we're going to hear about buying chains and marriage. I don't believe Rich is making any commentary with this matchup. Big guy, save me.
Number 5.
Let's start with the starter questions. The first thing is, who else services your customer base? And all we're trying to do is find companies that have access to the companies that we want to access as our customers. It's a pretty simple thing. Who else services your customer base? Who has customers that could benefit buying what you sell? Now, these are just different ways to ask similar kinds of questions, okay? Who has customers that could benefit buying what you sell? What kinds of companies, businesses, or industries are kindred to yours but not competitive? In other words, they're in the same general kind of field, they're in the same ballpark, but they don't necessarily compete with you directly. And I'll give you some examples of those in a minute. Who comes before you in the buying chain? In other words, whose customers would we want? And then another question is, who comes after you in the buying chain? Who would want our customers? Now, the easiest way to illustrate this chain of buying is weddings. Think about weddings for a minute. And in the wedding chain of things that are purchased leading up to a wedding, can you think, I want you to think about this right now yourself, what is the first thing bought in the chain leading up to the actual wedding? And the answer in almost every case is the engagement ring, right? Because until there's an engagement ring, there's really no wedding plan. But once that engagement ring is purchased, then you start getting into all the other stuff like cakes and flowers and reception halls and dresses and tuxedos and all these other things that are associated with weddings. So wouldn't it be great in that chain of events to be the engagement ring seller? Because you hold literally the key to knowing who's going to be getting married soon. So if you're a cake dealer, wouldn't you want to know who all of the wedding ring sellers were? And of course, it doesn't just end there. You could also network and form joint ventures with other, if you're the cake guy, with the dress guy and the tuxedo guys and the venue guys and all those other guys, so that we can get this chain going. And what you've got to do is look and say, is there a chain of events that happens? And in some cases, there is no chain of events. Okay? In some cases, it's just a one-off purchase. But in many cases, there is going to be a chain. I'll give you a couple examples. I had a discussion the other day with an architect. And I said, well, when somebody is remodeling their home or office building or building a new building, do they go to a contractor first or an architect first? And he said, well, it just depends. Sometimes they go to the architect first and then find a contractor. Sometimes they go to a contractor who then needs to have an architect do the job. I said, okay, great. If you're going directly after the customer who may come to you first, then naturally you're going to have to optimize your website and your web marketing and all those kinds of things. But there's another side of your business, which is going to the contractors and saying, hey, if you've got a customer and you need an architect, I'm your man. And, of course, you've got to go through the whole MYM system, the methodology. Well, we won't talk about that in detail right now, but suffice it to say, we would want to have a great marketing program. But here's the key. Then we start pounding those remodelers and those contractors on an ongoing basis, letting them know, hey, if you've got a need for an architect, here I am. And there's a joint venture that could be developed where you have the ability to service all of the clients of that particular person. So there's a chain involved there. There's not always a chain, but when there is a chain, it's something you can take advantage of. And sometimes there's chains where you don't even really think that there's a chain. I'll give you an example of that, and I'll show you a detailed example of this a little bit later. If you're a painting company, you say, well, what chain am I in? Well, here's one chain that you're in. You're in the chain of new home purchases. So if somebody moves into a home, there's a good chance that they're going to need some things painted. I don't mean a brand new, spanking new home that was just constructed, but I mean an existing home that's new to that person. So you can go to the mortgage company or the title company and say, hey, let me communicate and talk to all of the people that buy a mortgage from you, because there's a good chance that some of those people that are moving into those homes are going to need painting. And if you have access to those people, I can intercept them before they get, quote unquote, let loose in Google or the Yellow Pages to start trying to find a painter. Wouldn't that be great if you could identify all the people that might need painting because they just bought a home and reach out and contact them and connect with them with the endorsement of the mortgage company that they already know and trust, instead of just haphazardly sitting around and waiting for that person to then move into their house and go, geez, I need some painting. I wonder who I should go to. See, what a wasted opportunity. This is called chains. But you've got to understand, what chains are you in? Sometimes you're in a chain. Sometimes you're not in a chain. But if you are in a chain, you got to identify it, and you've got to then go after exploiting that in a, of course, an ethical way.
I want to be the cake guy. Oh, maybe I could start up a joint venture with the cake guy. Maybe there isn't a buying chain between cake guy and voice talent yet. But wait, I'll just market my talents for those recordable birthday and anniversary cards. Ha! Who's clever now?